Hello everyone, welcome to my presentation. Today we are going to discuss about ocular drug delivery system and novel drug delivery system, right. So, first we will have basic introduction of ocular drug delivery system. What is ocular drug delivery system or ocular administration? Ocular administration of drug is primarily associated with the need to treat ophthalmic diseases and is not regarded as a means for gaining systemic drug action. That means, if we want to achieve local action within the eye, so that comes under ocular administration in ocular drug delivery system in sustained manner. Ideal ophthalmic drug delivery must be able to sustain the drug release and to remain in the vicinity of the eye for prolonged period of time. That means, via ocular drug delivery system we can have a prolonged release profile of drug candidate. Major classes of drug, as it is for a local effect, then we have to use only the drug that is used in the treatment for eye. So, major classes of drug used are miotics, mydriatics, anti-inflammatories, also known as NSAIDs, anti-infectives like antibiotics, antivirals, antibacterials, and surgical adjuvants and diagnostic for local therapy. Now, move on to next slide. What is the need for ocular administration? So, basically these novel devices or formulations may help to surpass the ocular barrier and associated side effect with conventional topical ocular drops, right. So, we have various conventional dosage form which can be used for ocular administration, like liquids, the eye drops, widely used, gels, creams, right, but they have several side effects like not side effects, they have various disadvantages like they cannot penetrate or pass ophthalmic barrier well. But if we use the advancement of these preparation, like having microparticles, having implants for eye preparations, then we can have we can overcome these barriers well and can have the extended release profile of drugs, right. Next, it provides prolonged drug retention, thus better absorption and consequently improved bioavailability. Yes, of course, as I told you that we can have prolonged or extended drug release profile of active. So, that means if the retention of the dosage form for ocular delivery is more, then the absorption will get better and we can have the prolonged release drug profile, right. It helps to provide precorneal elimination. Yes, this is the major problem in ocular drug delivery system in conventional form, that the 90% drug of the dosage form is eliminated and not going to the particular target area. So, to overcome this, we will make and we will have this approach for novel ocular drug delivery systems. Now, patient compliance is facilitated. Yes, if the frequency of conventional dosage form for eye is less, then obviously the patient the better patient compliance can be achieved, right. As you know that conventional oral liquid ocular liquid forms, you may have 2-3 times or more than 3-4 times you have to have these dosage form in this frequency. But if you talk about ocular drug delivery system for prolonged use of those who release drug in prolonged manner, then the frequencies get reduced. Now, what is first the basic need to understand the anatomy of eye, then only you can understand the drug or formulation factors to developed as ocular drug delivery system. So, I will give a preamble of eye anatomy. Like, eye is the most easily accessible site for topical administration of medication, right. Human eye has a spherical shape which is 23 mm in diameter. Structural components of eyeball divided into 3 layers, right. What are those structural components? Number 1 is outermost layer, which is also known as transparent cornea and opaque sclera, right. That means the outermost compartment consists of cornea and sclera. Middle layer, iris, consists of iris anterior part and choroid posterior part and ciliary body, right. So, I have the 2 parts, anterior and posterior. Then a middle layer is consist of iris and choroid and ciliary body as well. Inner layer consists of retina, which is extension of CNS, right. So, what is the composition of an eye? The water content present in the eye or tear fluid is 98%, whereas solids are 1.8%, organic element, that is protein, is 0.67%, sugar 0.65%, NaCl 0.66%, and other minerals like sodium, potassium and ammonia is present in 0.79%, right. So, we move on to next slide. There are different parts in eye. So, one by one we will have a look. First is pupil. It controls the amount of light entering the eye and dilates and contracts accordingly, right. The function of pupil is to dilate and contract the eye accordingly according to the condition. Cornea, it is optically transparent tissue and acts as a principal refractive element of an eye, right. Ciliary body, it is a structure which contains muscle and is located behind the iris, which focuses the lens. Now, retina, the nerve layer lining at the back of the eye is senses light and create electrical impulses that are sent through the optic nerve to the brain. So, basically it senses the light and develop electrical impulses and send information to the brain how to respond. Sclera, white outer coat of eye surrounding the iris. Vitreous humor, the clear gelatinous substance filling the central cavity of the eye. Iris is the colored part of the eye which coordinate with the pupil. Lens focuses light rays onto the retina. Yes, next is choroid, layer containing blood vessels that lines the back of the eye and is located between the retina, that means the inner light sensitive layer, and the sclera, the outer white eye wall, right. So, you see the picture, the basic parts has been highlighted here. This is known as the anterior part and this is known as the posterior part. So, in anterior compartment we have ciliary bodies, iris, pupil, cornea and aqueous humor chamber, whereas in posterior part we have sclera, choroid, retina, macula, optic nerve and vitreous body. So, here now you understand what are the different parts and we target all these parts to make ocular drug delivery system. So, we can have conventional dosage form here and we can have the specific parenteral injection to target particular part of the eye, right. So, we will discuss it later. Now, what are the different barriers of ocular drug delivery? Yes, of course. When we say that there are disadvantages associated with conventional dosage form, then we should know what are the different barriers which needs to be overcome while making oral ocular controlled drug delivery system. Now, what are the barriers of drug permeation? As we localized our ocular preparation in the eye, then we have to know about the ocular barriers only, right. What are the ocular barriers? Number one is precorneal, second is dynamic, and third is static. It is divided into three main categories in which different concerns are there. In precorneal, you see drainage of drug solution, right, drainage of drug solution, lacrimation and tear dilution. So, these are the factors which are associated with the precorneal administration, like when we instill our normal conventional eye drop, and it may be lost due to drainage of drug solution from out from the eye. Lacrimation, tear dilution, the concentration of the drug component in the dosage form when instilled once in the eye may get diluted with tears. Now, we talk about dynamic. Then dynamic, it is lymphatic flow, blood flow in conjunctiva and choroid. Now, the third one is static. This corneal epithelium, it includes sclera, conjunctiva, choroid and retinal pigment epithelium. So, these are different types of barriers which may have adverse effect on the conventional dosage form, and this is the result. Then we have to choose an alternative therapy or alternative approach to develop the efficient ocular preparations. Now, the drug in ophthalmic preparation reach inside the eye through cornea via epithelium, stroma, endothelium structure, which is equivalent to fat water fat structure depending on oil water penetration coefficient, right. So, in ophthalmic preparations, the ophthalmic preparations reach inside the eye similarly as the fat water fat structure to pass through these layers like epithelium, stroma, endothelium, which are the part of cornea. Now, the blood ocular barrier restricts most of the drugs out of the eye, because they can't pass this corneal barrier. Example, inflammation breaks down the barrier allowing the drug and large molecule to penetrate into the eye. This barrier divided into two subparts, blood aqueous barrier and blood retinal barrier, right. So, aqueous barrier comprises of the ciliary, epithelium and capillaries of iris. These are the parts of eye which I have told you earlier, and blood retinal barrier it comprises of capillaries like of the retinal circulation and tight junction between retinal epithelial cells. So, here we go. What is the mechanism of absorption for ocular drug administration? So, as just now I discussed in detail that there are various types of barrier present in eye. So, it makes it difficult thing to achieve the drug absorption in well mannered pattern. So, for to overcome this, we have to know the basic mechanism through which drug is absorbed via corneal and precorneal route, right. So, first is corneal absorption. So, number one, the epithelium outer layer of the cornea is a rate limiting barrier. We should know that cornea is made up of 5 sub layers, and the outermost layer is considered as epithelium, and it is the rate limiting barrier for most of the drugs, right. Lipophilic drugs mainly transport via transcellular pathway, right. The mechanism of drug absorption is transcellular pathway. Hydrophilic molecules absorb to anterior chamber via paracellular pathways. Transcellular and paracellular represent across the cell and within the cell pathway. Non-corneal absorption includes penetration across sclera and conjunctiva into intraocular tissue. That means the absorption is taking place through sclera and conjunctiva in this non-corneal absorption route, right. Significant for drug molecules with poor corneal permeability, right. So, we can have this approach for drugs those having difficulty to cross cornea due to their physical or chemical nature. This mechanism is usually non-productive as drug penetrating is taken up by the local capillary beds and removed to general circulation. But if we talk about practicality of this type of absorption, so most of the drug is absorbed in systemic circulation. So, we can't have that local type of effect within an eye, right. So, this is not an productive absorption route for most of the drugs. Now, we talk about what are the different pathways for ocular absorption. You see this picture, yes. So, first we will discuss the drug is in tear fluid. Now, we talk about ocular absorption. Ocular absorption is just 5% in the dose. 5% of the dose can be can pass the corneal barrier or can get into the eye, 5% of the total dose, whereas 50% to 100% of the dose is absorbed through systemic absorption, right. So, major routes for this type of absorption are conjunctiva, nose, and minor routes are lacrimal, drainage, pharynx, GI tract, skin, cheeks, aqueous humor and inner ocular tissues. So, these are basically your routes for systemic absorption of the ocular drug administered. And for ocular absorption, what are the parts which are responsible for ocular absorption? Corneal and conjunctival and scleral route. Corneal 1% route can 1% drug can be absorbed, which are small lipophilic type, whereas through conjunctiva and sclera large hydrophilic drugs can be absorbed. And from this corneal absorption, the drug will go to the aqueous chamber and then ocular tissues. So, after this deposition, drug will show effect in the eye or the local effect. So, you see how much drug percent is getting absorbed through ocular absorption, that is just only 5%. Drug elimination, as you see in the last picture. So, through after coming into the systemic circulation, the drug is directly eliminated. So, after via this ocular absorption also the drug will get into systemic circulation and then will get eliminated. So, this is how you get the absorption pattern. Now, we will talk about drug elimination. So, drug elimination, topical drugs and their metabolites may be eliminated through various mechanisms such as outflow of drug by blinking mechanism of the eyelids, like you just blink your eyes during instillation, right. Then the drug or formulation will be outflowed, right. So, it is also one of the mechanism of drug elimination, and this is basically known as pre-corneal elimination, that at the initial point of time of instillation the drug is eliminated before going to the corneal region. Instilled liquid dose either drained from the conjunctival sac into nasolacrimal duct and cleared through the nasolacrimal route. So, this is the another point we need to consider for a drug elimination, that the after instillation of the liquid dose, either it is drained from the conjunctival sac or into nasolacrimal duct, right, the area below the eyelid, and it is getting into nasolacrimal duct and cleared through the nasolacrimal route, right. This is one of the route of elimination. Now, administered dose in the anterior chamber may be eliminated through aqueous humor outflow. Aqueous humor outflow, the tear production we can say, then it depends on the tear production in the eye, right. This is also responsible for drug elimination. Now, these factor results in drugs poor bioavailability. When once drug is eliminated out of the eye, then the drug bioavailability is poor. You see this picture, that precorneal area, once you instill the dose, the precorneal area is drug protein interaction is there, drug metabolism is there, drainage, induced lacrimation, evaporation, corneal absorption, conjunctival absorption, normal tear turnover. So, these are the different factors which are present at precorneal area, and these factors needs to be considered while designing ocular drug delivery system or sustained or controlled ocular drug delivery system for better performance of the drug candidate for eye. So, various factor affecting intraocular bioavailability, right. So, what are different types of factors for to enhance the bioavailability of drug content in the eye? Inflow and outflow of lacrimal fluids, right. Yes, though it is a physiological aspect of an individual, that how much of lacrimal fluid is producing by the eye, but it is the factor affecting the drug bioavailability. Efficient nasolacrimal drainage, right, interaction of drug with protein of lacrimal fluid, tear dilution and tear turnover, corneal barriers, active ion transport at cornea, reflex blinking, metabolism, non-productive absorption, systemic, physicochemical properties of drugs such as solubility, lipophilicity, molecular weight, degree of ionization. So, the physiological barriers are also important to manipulate or to enhance or to affect the bioavailability of drug, as well as drug physicochemical properties of the drug, right. So, both factors is associated for intraocular bioavailability. Now, these are some references where I put the data, and now we will discuss about the highlights what we have discussed in this session. Now, first I told you about the ocular drug administration, why it is important, as the conventional dosage form for ophthalmic delivery unable to give such efficient or required response to the eye, that needs or that emerges the need of making such controlled drug delivery system as it is advanced drug delivery system. Then these ocular preparations may have prolonged type of release in the eye region, right, and the patient compliance is better for making these type of controlled ocular drug delivery system, as the frequency will get reduced while compared to the conventional dosage form. Now, it also includes the basic anatomy of eye, what type of part present in the eye, and we can target individual or the effective regions in the eye for better drug administration, right. If we make the formulation, then we should know first what are the various parts of eye and what are their roles. So, we have discussed all these parts in detail, like it has pupil, cornea, ciliary body, retina, sclera, vitreous, humor, iris, lens, choroid, and many more, and this is the basic anatomy of the eye. Now, what are the barriers it is very important to know the barriers, because when you develop any of dosage form, then you should know what are the problems basically, and you have to find out the solution for those problems. If you do not have any problem, then for what you will find solution. So, we have to overcome these barriers, physiological barriers basically, to get the desired effect of the drug candidate within the eye. As for ocular administration, we can have the targeted effect or localized effect within the eye, then we should know that the maximum absorption or retention of drug needs to be within the eye, not in the general or systemic circulation. So, for this is important to know all these barriers, so that you can have different approach to overcome these barriers. Now, what are the various mechanisms of absorption? So, we have generalized two types of absorption, that corneal absorption and non-corneal absorption. So, corneal absorption represent the absorption through cornea and the layers different present in cornea, and non-corneal absorption, that absorption through sclera and conjunctiva. So, these are different mechanism of absorption of drug to the eye. Yes, the second one absorption mechanism is less favorable, as most of the drug is getting into the systemic circulation. So, as I have told you that in ocular administration, we want our drug to retain within the eye only, then for the prolonged time, so that it can show and give the better effects at the particular site. Now, we have discussed various pathways for drug absorption. Yes, if it is absorbed via corneal absorption, then the drug will follow this path, right, this path. If it is absorbed through these parts, conjunctiva, nose, nasal root, lacrimal drainage, pharynx, then it will go into systemic circulation and then directly eliminated, whereas the drug absorbed will either by corneal or scleral route will be next in aqueous chamber and then deposited in ocular tissues and show its effect, and then goes into systemic circulation again and then eliminated from the system. Now, drug elimination, I have told you that various elimination routes are there through which the drug can be eliminated, and various factors during which we have to consider while making ocular drug delivery system. Drug protein reaction is there, that means drug and protein in the eye present can react. So, physicochemical property again then need to discuss. Drug metabolism, what is the metabolism pathway of drug within the eye, and your induced lacrimation, how much lacrimation is happening within the eye. It depends on individual physiology. Normal tear turnover, basically an average value should be there, but in disease condition the value may get reduced or increased. Now, conjunctival absorption. So, this is also an important factor to understand the absorption. Corneal absorption, it is required absorption route, evaporation of tears. So, basically the corneal absorption of drug is of high importance here, through which only we can have the targeted effect of the drug within the eye. As you see in the last picture, that it is only 5% via ocular absorption through cornea and conjunctival sclera. So, we have to target this approach, corneal or scleral or conjunctival approach, for maximizing the drug absorption within the eye, and then it will be eliminated accordingly. So, I hope you understand this concept of ocular drug delivery system and its designing, and we will be continuing this session on ocular drug delivery system later. So, I hope you understand all these points very clearly, and stay safe, take care, thank you.